What else?
Your guy last night drives it against Jokic. Jokic makes zero contact with him. LeBron makes the layup. Okay, no foul called. And then he falls to the ground, writhing in pain. The problem, of course, with the faker is that he wasn't sure which arm to grab. Which arm was hurting.
LeBron James attacked the rim, converted the layup, heard nothing from the officials, and then collapsed to the hardwood like a sniper had targeted him from the upper deck.
Played a big role, 16 points. James gets inside for the deuce and he lands awkwardly.
The issue was he couldn't recall which arm was supposedly hurt, so he clutched both of them. The entire building watched. Not a single person was convinced. And somehow this man still expects to be regarded as a serious competitor every single night. Be real with yourself. At this stage of his career, is LeBron's flopping an ingrained habit he's incapable of shaking, or is it a deliberate tactic designed to draw whistles? Tell us what you think in the comments.
So he goes to the ground, no foul called, but the bucket counted. By the way, they lost to the Nuggets because they always lose to the Nuggets, right?
Nuggets are better.
Yeah, they are better.
Nuggets are better.
And your guy's now writhing on the floor in pain. He grabs his right elbow. And then he's like, maybe it wasn't that one. So then he grabs his left elbow, and then it wasn't that one. So then one of the guys comes over to try to help him up. He yells, "Oh, my elbow!"
Let's paint the picture. LeBron James attacks the basket against Jokic. He reaches the rim. He converts the layup. Absolutely zero contact from Jokic. Nothing. Not a bump, not a scrape, not even a heavy breath in his general vicinity. No foul gets whistled because no foul existed to whistle. And then LeBron James, 40 years of age, for titles to his name, regarded by countless people as the greatest basketball player to ever walk the earth, crashes to the floor and begins contorting like he just absorbed a fastball directly to the midsection. Fine. Alright. Players exaggerate contact occasionally. It's embedded in the sport. It's been embedded in the sport for generations. Irritating, but hardly groundbreaking news.
Still don't know where he got hurt to the point that caused this reaction. I think he faking, bro. I just caught it. I caught it. He reached for one arm and then reached for the other arm. So he just grabbed both of them. He didn't know which one to play it off with, so he grabbed both of them. Look at him.
Except here's where it becomes genuinely, almost poetically terrible. LeBron reaches for his right elbow, seizes it, clutches it, and then, and this is the portion that deserves its own compilation reel, appears to reconsider. Perhaps it wasn't the right elbow. So he grabs the left one. Left elbow. That's definitely the one. Except maybe that's not it either. So now both arms are somehow entangled in this theatrical production. And a teammate rushes over to assist him up. And LeBron bellows with absolute conviction, "My elbow." Which elbow, LeBron? The entire world is waiting for clarification.
And they take him to the bench, and no one's paying him any mind, of course, because everyone knows he's faking.
Nothing.
And then he comes right back on the court like 10 seconds later.
Thank God he's all
Yeah.
right.
Oh!
You know, I was definitely worried about LeBron.
Yo, it's so comical now that he don't even try to hide it. Yo, flopping on the ground like a flounder. Yo, not sure which arm to grab, so he grabs both of them. Does that, can't get up. Oh, my elbow.
Then he gets escorted to the bench. Medical personnel attend to him. The broadcast transitions away. The audience digests what they just witnessed, and roughly 10 seconds afterward, give or take, LeBron James returns to the court, apparently completely healed from the elbow catastrophe that had him thrashing around on the hardwood like a trout that launched itself from the aquarium and instantly regretted every life decision. The Los Angeles Lakers dropped that contest to the Denver Nuggets, incidentally, which is entirely consistent with the pattern.
The Lakers end up the 6th seed, and Denver ends up the 3. Then they get Denver in the first round again. They're going home. They're not beating the Denver Nuggets. I can assure you that. They're not beating the Denver Nuggets. I don't care what anybody says, okay?
The Nuggets and the Lakers have maintained a dynamic over recent years that can be condensed quite simply. Denver prevails. Not every single time, but frequently enough that it resembles a systemic issue rather than an unfortunate evening. The Nuggets are a superior squad. They've been a superior squad. Jokic is a more impactful player in terms of what he delivers toward winning basketball. And the proof is the final score at the conclusion of matchups between these two organizations. But the flopping episode is the headline here because eventually it transitions from being a discussion topic to becoming a defining characteristic. And LeBron has been constructing this specific characteristic for so long that at this juncture in his career, it has solidified into something permanent. It's woven into how he's analyzed. It's woven into how his performances are consumed. When he crashes to the floor, the instinctive reaction from a substantial segment of the viewing audience isn't worry. It's doubt. And the instance where he couldn't determine which arm was damaged, seized both of them, screamed about an elbow, and then trotted back onto the court moments later is precisely why that doubt persists.
This is your king. This is your GOAT. A dude that is so desperate for attention. A dude that is so desperate to be noticed that he pretends to be hurt. He can't get back on defense after a made shot because he fell on his arm and got a boo-boo? And I struggle to say LeBron James got a boo-boo because all he did was softly fall to the ground.
Here's the reality about LeBron's flopping that makes it especially infuriating. He doesn't require it. That's what makes it so bewildering to witness. This is a man holding 4 championship rings. This is a man who legitimately ranks among the finest players in NBA history. His position in the conversation is cemented. His legacy is constructed. The all-time scoring record belongs to him. The assist totals are extraordinary. The longevity alone, performing at an elite standard this deep into his career, represents something that extraordinarily few athletes in any discipline have accomplished. He doesn't need to clutch the incorrect elbow and scream about it to command respect. And yet, here we are observing the theatrical production. The flopping discourse surrounding LeBron isn't recent. It has trailed him for the majority of his career, and his defenders have consistently maintained a rebuttal at the ready. They'll argue he's massive and powerful and barrels into contact, so occasionally he genuinely absorbs significant punishment. They'll argue the referees don't award sufficient fouls for him because of his frame, so he must exaggerate to earn the whistle. They'll argue every superstar engages in it and he merely receives heightened scrutiny because he's LeBron. Each of those arguments possesses some validity. None of them adequately explain clutching both arms, being uncertain which one is injured, getting assisted off the court, and then returning to action before the subsequent television timeout. The comparison to slapstick comedy that surfaces for moments like this is genuinely pretty fitting. There's an inherently comedic dimension to it at this point. The performance is so exaggerated, so dramatically invested in, and then so rapidly discarded when he recognizes the call isn't forthcoming that it cycles entirely from aggravating to nearly entertaining. Nearly. Now, the Nuggets contest also produced a defeat for the Lakers, meaning the flopping spectacle was immediately followed by the scoreboard delivering an even grimmer narrative. You can't flop your way to a victory. The officials didn't accept it. The points weren't awarded. The game was surrendered. And somewhere in Denver, Nikola Jokic, who made absolutely zero contact with LeBron on that sequence and has presumably witnessed this performance enough times to not even bother acknowledging it anymore, was collecting his victory and proceeding with his evening. Jokic, for his part, represents the complete antithesis of LeBron in this particular context. He plays a physical, commanding, unquestionably elite brand of basketball and essentially never winds up on the floor in dramatic fashion unless someone legitimately displaced him. He doesn't embellish fouls. He simply competes and then he wins, repeatedly against the Lakers specifically. The contrast in approaches, Jokic playing authentically, LeBron periodically playing theater, constitutes no minor factor in why the Nuggets have consistently owned the Lakers in recent seasons. Let's transition to something that genuinely made the NBA look impressive this week because the league deserves acknowledgement when acknowledgement is warranted. Connell Malawak, and yes, the name is going to require some adjustment for numerous broadcasters who are already mangling it, currently stands as your NBA Rookie of the Year frontrunner. 4th selection overall in last year's draft out of Duke and largely overlooked during the early portion of the season because the entire rookie discourse was consumed by Cooper Flagg. Flagg, for what it's worth, has delivered a respectable inaugural season. Approximately 26 points and 5 rebounds per contest isn't a figure you disregard, particularly considering he's competing with essentially no supporting infrastructure around him and has battled foot injuries throughout the year. An 18-year-old producing at that caliber in the NBA is authentically impressive. He is not, however, the Rookie of the Year. And the explanation is Malawak. The Charlotte Hornets have embarked on a surge that absolutely nobody forecasted and even fewer individuals can comprehensively explain. 6 consecutive victories by 15 or more points. The only franchise in NBA history to accomplish that more frequently is the 73-win Golden State Warriors. Absorb that again. The Charlotte Hornets are sharing company with one of the greatest regular season rosters in the history of professional basketball in a specific statistical metric. The Hornets. The franchise that hasn't reached the postseason in what feels like an archaeological epoch. The franchise whose most recent playoff appearance involves a historical investigation that includes names like Kemba Walker. And they're accomplishing it with LaMelo Ball orchestrating the offense, a legitimate top 5-point guard who is authentically electrifying. And Malawak providing a dimension that the league is still deciphering how to contain. Brandon Miller has additionally evolved into a 20-point scorer in year 2 and merits recognition for his development trajectory. But the player making Charlotte suddenly compelling, transforming them into a .500 squad competing for a play-in berth in the East and making the Rookie of the Year race feel effectively concluded, that's Malawak. The reason Malawak was overlooked initially follows an extremely predictable NBA media template. The top selection receives the spotlight. The player carrying the biggest reputation from the most prominent college program receives the coverage. Flag was the consensus first pick. Duke produced him. The Mavericks selected him first. And the storyline was authored before he played a single professional game. Everything surrounding him was filtered through that storyline for the opening months of the season. Malawak went fourth. He also came from Duke, which creates a fascinating dynamic, but the spotlight was already completely directed at Flag. So Malawak landed in Charlotte, a small market franchise that doesn't generate the caliber of national coverage that Dallas or Los Angeles commands, and simply began quietly delivering excellent basketball while the cameras were pointed elsewhere. That's actually how certain legendary rookie campaigns in NBA history have unfolded. Away from the scrutiny, away from the relentless analysis, in an environment where the player can develop without the entire sports media apparatus dissecting every miscue in real time. Charlotte provided Malawak that atmosphere and he has capitalized on it productively. The pronunciation situation warrants direct acknowledgement because broadcasters across the league are already demonstrating inventive approaches to saying it, the vast majority of which are incorrect. Malawak. It will become second nature quickly enough once the Rookie of the Year conversation fully gravitates in his direction. And that gravitational shift feels imminent. When a player's squad wins 6 consecutive games by 15+ points and he's the catalyst, you exhaust all methods of overlooking it. Returning to LeBron momentarily because the flopping episode and the Malawak conversation actually intersect in a compelling way when you contemplate what the NBA resembles right now. You have LeBron, legacy cemented, accomplishments undeniable, but increasingly characterized by moments that erode the gravitas of his legacy in real time. And you have a generation of players emerging behind him who are authoring their own narratives without the identical theatrical baggage. Malawak doesn't need to clutch both arms and holler about an elbow. He simply plays basketball and allows the outcomes to communicate. That's a remarkably effective blueprint. Flag doesn't need to embellish fouls to attract attention. Neither does Victor Wembanyama, who is executing things on a basketball court that require absolutely no exaggeration whatsoever. The next generation of NBA stars appears, broadly speaking, less invested in the performance art of flopping and more invested in simply being exceptional. LeBron is 40 years old. He has earned the privilege to play however he chooses. But the elbow incident, the wrong arm, then the other wrong arm, then the screaming, then the immediate return to action, is now part of the permanent archive. It will appear in the compilation videos. It will be cited every time someone constructs an argument that his public image maintains a complicated relationship with authenticity. King James. King of the Flop. Both titles exist. Both are earned. The first for what he's accomplished building a legacy across 2 decades of elite basketball. The second for moments like Tuesday evening against the Nuggets when he converted a layup, crashed to the floor without justification, clutched the wrong arm, then clutched the other wrong arm, hollered about an elbow, and trotted back onto the court 10 seconds later as though absolutely nothing transpired. The NBA contains multitudes. LeBron James contains multitudes. And apparently, both elbows contain identical amounts of injury, which is to say absolutely none whatsoever. That's the complete breakdown of LeBron's theatrical production against the Nuggets and everything else transpiring in the NBA right now. If this provided you something to debate, smash that like button and drop your perspective in the comments below. King James or King of the Flop? You make the call. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's your moment.